Because when they start shooting at you, that's when you smarten up. Because I was scared a lot of times, and I thought I was tough. But you're not as tough as the next guy.
You used to go to town on Saturday night, to the movie.
Mostly we would go to a movie and go to a restaurant afterwards or before, or go to dances. We went to a lot of dances.
There was always a bunch of people together. It was not necessarily one-on-one or things like that. There was a load of people, a bus load.
I had the nicest boyfriend, and he took me to the movies, and his chum came along with him, and we saw Newt Rockney. It was Ronald Reagan, was Newt Rockney, who was a great football star in the States, and the three of us cried when he died. Well,
living on an island, it was a little bit difficult, but there used to be school dances, and you always had a date for that.
I guess to a dance. I'd go to movies, but the dance mostly. The Fleet Club in Halifax. We had parties in the boarding house where I was living. The Sisters of Service ran it. They were always open to having people into the piano room and have a lot of fun.
We'd have barn dances. The one thing we couldn't have because of the fire regulations, like if we had a barn dance, we couldn't have bales of hay, because that's a fire hazard.
We always went in groups, and then there was nothing to, regret, because teenagers are the same today as they were then, You get alone, you know what's going to happen.
If you got a kiss goodnight, that was it. I remember we didn't even wear lipstick in grade 11.
Like, we really didn't know enough about it to be having sex. Then kids didn't ask anybody unless you had an older sister or like that my cousin did. But it's the same today. Girls think they don't want to say, they don't want to ask questions, and they don't want to say they don't know. And the first thing you know, like when you speak to women in their 30s or 40s that had children early, and because they didn't know the difference, they didn't know what was happening, They always said that every time my husband put his pants on the end of the bed, I got pregnant.
And this was one thing that was never mentioned either. That was a taboo. That was a word that was kept under the mat. You never spoke about it.
Oh, I got home on November the 11th, and my mom and dad were both presidents of the Royal Canadian Legion, and there was a bus ride that night.
Well, I was a young sailor in Halifax, and there was lots of girls around.
And this friend, my mother's, had her daughter there.
We ended up together one night in a restaurant. I was sitting there, and this one came in, and somebody knew the girl she was with, and from there on.
Actually, on a blind date.
She was all alone. So this fellow kept after her and everything, bugging her. So I said, why don't you leave the girl alone? She's not bugging you.
I met her in Dartmouth. The first time I met her at a dance hall on Kennard Street in Halifax, where a lot of people went. It was called the Olympic.
So he sort of got mad. So I said, is he bothering you? She said, no, but the way she said, I know he was. So I said, why don't you come and sit with us? It was my sisters, my mother, and the whole gang. So she said, okay. So I said, the B, that was her mother. I said, do you mind if she sits with her? No. So she came over, so we started talking, this and that. One thing led to another. We went out 2 years, and then we decided to get married. because I stopped sailing. That was it.
He was in the Navy and he came home on leave. And he came to church, and I met him at church, and we started going to church together, like to youth group and things like that.
And she was very attractive, and I loved reading, she loves the reading, she loved to dance. I love good music, and when I say good music, I'm not referring to there's lots of good music now, but there was music that just blasted, in those days too. And
He lived in the same town, and I met him through another friend at a dance.
But she said, the first I heard that you were going to marry me was when you went to your uncle in Ontario and said, "This is my future wife."
I wouldn't have become involved if I hadn't become a friend first. You have to be a friend before you can be a lover. So we had lots of time to learn about each other and be friends.
I guess my heart fluttered, and he must have felt the same way.
Well, I wasn't all that sure, but we've been together for almost 50 years now, so I guess something must be working.
I think it was because he was a sailor.
Man in uniform?
Oh, I'm telling you, those men in uniform were terrible. They were just all so good looking.
No, there was no problem. We were both the same religion, and in those days, religion, now there's very little difference, but then there was a big dividing line between Protestants and Roman Catholics for some people.
Her mother didn't want to get me to marry her because she was Protestant. My mother didn't want me to marry because I was Catholic. So I said, well, we'll go out and get married. So we just went out and got married. When I got home, I said, I'm married now. I said, if anybody doubts me, I'll show you a marriage certificate, but don't bug me anymore. Don't speak to me anymore if you call me a liar. We're married 54 years.
I still have a letter that was sent to my husband in 1951 from his father, saying that he was, if my husband was happy and could take on the responsibility of a family, then they were very overjoyed that I would be marrying, that he would be marrying me. So I was pleased with that. I still have the letter.
I guess that answers my next question. Did they accept you?
Well, her mother didn't appreciate me too well to start with, but later on she figured it wasn't too bad after all. I guess these sailors didn't really have a good name in them days. The respect is not there for your parents. It used to be in my term.
The way that we live these days is different. You couldn't compare it with our days.
Life is so fast today. When I was growing up, life wasn't that fast. And I don't think the kids have a chance today.
This is the way life is today. Easy come, easy go, and well, so what? This is the sort of the attitude.
Much harder, much harder. They have more things to decide on. Like, I can remember wanting to be a nurse. Nowadays, you can't just want to be a nurse. You have to determine what kind of a nurse you want to be.
If you're not in the crowd, you're left out.
Well, I don't think they respect their parents like we used to.
Yeah.
But I find today, if you don't do what they do, they don't seem to bother with you.
If you don't go along with the flow, go with the flow, you're different. And it just doesn't work out.
And the drugs today, we never had drugs. That's what's pulling down a lot of them today. A lot.
They have a lot more money to spend, and they seem to have a lot more freedom than we did when we were growing up.
Actually, we don't talk too much about regrets, but, well, I'll tell you one thing I do hear is women that say, I sure wish I had learned to drive, because so many women outlive their husbands, and then if they haven't learned to drive, their husband's gone, the car's sitting there, and there they are.
When I see my children, and I see my grandchildren, and now I see my great-grandson, it just, yeah, I get emotional. You know, you can't regret.
I have done a few things in my lifetime that aren't all that good, but I don't really regret any. See, one of my other things is I'm a recovering alcoholic also. And I don't regret a bit being sick enough to ask for help. Because I've got a whole new world of friends, and I've learned how to live with people and how to get along with things, situations as they are because of things that have happened. Eh?
Well, I guess, yeah, at one time you might have said, they said, if I had known that this would happen, then they would have put it right. But that's something that it just happens on the moment, and you think about it afterwards. You can't think of it ahead of time.
I regret not continuing my singing.
God has a pattern for each and every one of us when we're born. Some of us do it and find the right path and end up halfway decent. Other people don't.
Sometimes I make fun of it, but sometimes I say, I'm just dying to get to heaven, because I'm nosy and I like seeing things. I love travel, and I figure if heaven's as great as they say it is, we should be glad to be going.
Because if you get certain aches and pains now, or you have appointments with your doctor and you're terrified what she's going to say, you're getting older and things are going to, your body's breaking down. You know, there's lots can happen.
I don't know. For death I do not fear. It does make me uncomfortable because I can say I was headed in that direction. Dialysis brought me back. If my kidneys ever failed again, I would say a living will, saying no extra medication or anything to keep me alive. Because I know what dialysis is, I know how it affects you and all this sort of thing, eh? But I never got around to it. I put the disc in the computer and I started filling in a form or two, and it felt strange. It's sitting on my desk still. The disc is there and there's part of it in the computer. It's not there yet.
I don't really think I've changed a whole lot. I think I try to respect people, and I think I did way back when, too.
There's been many things have happened since then and have changed my entire outlook on life, actually. So I can't say I'd be the same person, no, because when I was a teenager I was drinking. I didn't have much respect for myself or others then. Today I have an entire different outlook on life.
Well, I still have my independence now, for sure. I mean, I was on my own at 18, you know, before I married, so, and I enjoyed life, and now I'm enjoying life tremendously, you know, I really am. And I'm still dancing.
Do. It's the fact that I'm so fond of children.
I want to be remembered as a person who enjoyed life, liked to help other people.
Fun-loving person. I mean, I seem to click with I've got a lot of friends, a lot of good friends.
Well, just be honest and be prepared to, look after yourself. You know which is right and wrong. It's tough sometimes just to always do things the way you should do it.
Don't get married too early in life, and make sure you've got the right man, dear.
Get a good education. Education is a must. Don't take any shortcuts or anything. A proper education.
I'd say get as much education as you can. And it doesn't have to be university.